Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for Early Intervention 101. Today's webinar is meant to be a foundational training on Arizona's Early Intervention Program for infants and toddlers birth to 3. And my name is Jana, and I'm joined by my colleague, Chris.
My name's Christopher Tiffany, and thank you all for joining us again for this great webinar.
Chris and I both are with Raising Special Kids, a nonprofit that exists to improve the lives of children with a full range of disabilities from birth to 26 by providing support, training, information, and individual assistance so families can become effective advocates for their children. That's our role with Raising Special Kids. If you are a professional serving families, there is a How to Refer a Family to Raising Special Kids document included in our webinar companion that is available for downloads. Our learning objectives today are, we'll talk about under IDEA Part C, Findings and Policy. We'll talk about the Arizona Early Intervention Program and the 7 key principles, the Early Intervention Team and the IFSP team, the Child and Family Assessment, Functional Outcomes, the Team Lead and FAB scheduling. We'll talk about transition planning meeting and the transition conference, preschool eligibility, the IEP or the Individualized Education Program, and then finally preschool curriculum focus. We will also have a question and answer time at the end of the session, so as you have questions, please feel free to jot those down and we'll cover them at the end.
Great, thank you, Jana. So jumping into our first learning objectives, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is our nation's special education law. Part C of IDEA governs early intervention that serves infants and toddlers from birth until their 3rd birthday. It is these findings that are really the foundation of IDEA Part C and early intervention. So let's take a look at the findings and see what they found. Congress finds that there's an urgent and substantial need to enhance the development of infants and toddlers with disabilities. The findings go on to say that by enhancing the development of infants and toddlers with disabilities, we will do many things. We'll minimize their potential for developmental delay later on in life. We'll reduce the educational costs to our society, including schools, by minimizing the need for special education services when they reach school age. There's also, what we'll also do is maximize their potential to live independently. And the findings also address the need to enhance the family's ability to meet the special needs of their children. So really recognizing the parents as the child's first teacher. So helping families understand their child's diagnosis and best practices and helping them develop. And also the findings address the need to enhance the capacity of state and local agencies to identify, evaluate, and serve these children and families. So after their findings, because they did find that there was an urgent and substantial need to enhance the development, they moved forward in developing our national policy that provides funding to states to meet this urgent and substantial need. So if we take a look at number 1, we see words like comprehensive and coordinated, interagency, and that services are to be provided not only to infants and toddlers, but also to their families and parents. Again, recognizing that the parents are the child's first teacher. And number 2, the policy addresses how the services will be funded, and again uses that word coordination. Number 3 talks about the need for quality intervention services and continuous improvement of those services. The last bullet point deals with encouraging states, in my opinion, to really think outside of the box when it comes to expanding opportunities for at-risk children under 3. So to sum up, Congress's findings drive our national policy, and our national policy basically puts out a call to states to develop statewide comprehensive and coordinated early intervention programs.
So in our state, the Department of Economic Security is the umbrella agency that tasks the lead state agency, the Arizona Early Intervention Program, to implement the early intervention in Arizona. You will see that the mission for the Arizona Early Intervention Program is that early intervention builds upon and provides supports and resources to assist family members and caregivers to enhance children's learning and development through everyday learning opportunities. We'll talk about, in the next slide, the 7 key principles for early intervention. And we'll be referring to these 7 principles all throughout the webinar today. You will note that key principle number 1 marries very closely to the mission of Arizona's Early Intervention Program that we just discussed on the previous slide, that infants and toddlers learn best through everyday experiences and interactions with familiar people in familiar contexts.
And so, as we get started, we wanted to skip to key principle number 4, which talks about the early intervention process being dynamic and individualized, and reflecting the child and family's preferences, learning styles, and cultural beliefs. One important note to ponder is this. If the early intervention process does not take into account the family's preferences, learning styles, and cultural beliefs, what are the chances that those early intervention services will be successful? So family involvement and buy-in are really critical to serving these infants and toddlers. Early intervention looks different for every single family, and early intervention services are going to change with new developments within the family. So rather than a diagnosis specific, the early intervention services are needs specific for the entire family and not just the child. So we want you to think about that concept of dynamic and individualized, and just grab it and tuck it away in the back of your mind as we run through this webinar. And I think you'll see that as we do run through the webinar, we'll be revisiting that concept often. So there are over 30 states that currently use team-based early intervention services. This is an evidence-based practice that focuses on teaming, coaching, and on natural learning opportunities. Every family will have a core team of professionals supporting their family, and this consists of the first 5 bullet points you see on the slide. A developmental special instructor, you might know them as a DSI, occupational therapist or an OT, a physical therapist, PT, speech and language pathologist, SLP or speech, and then a service coordinator. We love our acronyms in special education, and if we start learning that we need to use acronyms early, it's going to serve us well. Notice that the 6th bullet point states others as needed. Because each child is different and the needs of each family is different, other professionals may be added to the core team for support. Other members may include a hearing specialist for a child that has a hearing impairment, a vision specialist, a social worker, a psychologist, a nutritionist if a child has some feeding issues. So another item that's important to note is that depending on the needs of the child, service coordination may be provided by the Arizona Early Intervention Program, a contractor with AzEIP. Service coordination could be provided by the Division of Developmental Disabilities or the Arizona State School for the Deaf and the Blind. Regardless of who fills which role, key principle 3 sums up the role of the service provider very well, and that is to work with and support family members and caregivers in children's lives. So that's our early intervention team. Now this is a different team of people. We're going to talk a little of the IFSP. As key principle number 2 states, all families with the necessary supports and resources can enhance their children's learning and development. The IFSP is the plan that will outline the necessary supports and services needed to enhance this development. The IFSP is developed by the IFSP team, and you and the people who contribute to this first IFSP meeting are outlined in IDEA Part C regulations. So the parent or legal guardian of the child, other family members if requested by the parent, an advocate or other persons outside of the family if requested by the parents, the designated AzEIP service coordinator, and again, that could be a DDD support coordinator or a service coordinator from ASDB, the person directly involved in conducting the assessment, evaluations, and person who will be providing services if appropriate. So think of it this way. Your early intervention team is responsible for implementing interventions with the child and family. Your IFSP team is responsible for creating the individualized family service plan document through a meeting. Both teams are going to work together and share team members, service coordinator, service provider, parent, etc.